Hey guys, just going to be with you this morning once again. Hey, it's End Time News Desk with Monte Cagle. Get ready, get your notebook ready, get your book ready, get the Bible ready, and we're going to get into some interesting stuff today.
Yeah, we got a lot of fun going on here now. That's right.
It's End Time News. Ready? Hey guys, welcome once again. Hey, back at it. Hey, good morning and welcome all of you. I'm Monte Cagle and it's End Time Prophecy. Today, we're going to be covering, as you know, we're covering the book of Daniel this week. And I wanted to say, I hope you're enjoying this little programs I'm doing for you. And I hope you're learning a lot. And I just hope you had a wonderful night, and I hope you enjoyed the class yesterday. Don't forget, you can go back over the videos, and don't forget to keep checking out my YouTube channel for all the classes and teachings and thoughts and comments right there at the Monte Cagle YouTube channel. And once again, I'd like to remind you, don't forget to get my book, The World is Out of Hand with Racism. Hey, don't forget to get my book, Racism and the Cure. And with this book, you can really make rhyme or reasons of this social, crazy world that we're living in with their race issues right now. Check it out, Racism and the Cure. Get it at montecagle.com. And don't forget, watch my videos, like my videos, and share the videos. And remember, the Monte Cagle YouTube channel for all classes, comments, videos, and all kind of good stuff right there. So guys, we're just continuing our little refresher course for those of you who haven't been in the Bible recently. And for those of you who are learning these things for the first time, I hope they are very inspiring for you. And I hope that it is opening the Bible up to you in a way you've never known before. Like I said, this is Bible prophecy for dummies. I have to say that because I like a lot of the things that I've read before in the past and many books I've read. And what I'm doing in these classes, I'm just walking through these Bible chapters in a simple way, very straightforward, I hope. Not too mystical or profound with secret encoding, but just simple things that will make the Bible more understandable to you. And for those of you who don't have a degree in seminary from a seminary school or theology, hey, this is for you. So right now, I'd also like to say, if you'd like to have any kind of a comment or you have any questions, I'm looking at my live feed right here, and you can ask me questions while we're going along. So today I'm going to go through the book of Daniel, and especially Daniel chapter 8. And what we're going to do today is we're just going to read through it very clearly, and I hope that it will be a blessing. And I hope the sound is right. And with that said, let's get into it this morning. So, I'm sure you've seen by now in these two classes that we had that a lot of the symbolisms in the Bible, especially in the book of Daniel, are very straightforward. And what Daniel was revealing to us today and centuries going by, that the visions and the dreams he was having are about kings and kingdoms. And my point in reading this for you is to let you know that we are living in the time of the end. It's not a joke. It's not a myth. It's not fairy tales. It's reality. And at this particular time, if this video is watched later on, you know that the world right now is in a worldwide global lockdown. We're in a lockdown, and that it is unprecedented and unheard of that the whole world has shut down for a virus or a disease. You can say what you will. That's phenomenal. I don't care what you say. This is something drastically different than has ever happened through the ages of men of all time. That the whole world shuts down because of a virus and also a world edit, a laws and restrictions put down by a government. Now that affects everybody within a particular kingdom. Let's say now it's the whole world. So let's be honest, the last time that happened was under the Roman Empire, when all the Israelites had to go back to their home city or for a census or for taxes in the time of Jesus. If you know the story of Jesus, that happened. They just decreed everybody should go back home to their city or town of origin and pay their taxes. And that was a Roman edict, a Roman decree. So they're decreeing that we all should stay in our homes and wear masks and all these worldwide decrees. Doesn't it kind of like say, well, wait a minute, this is really different. So something's really different when the whole world makes these decrees that everyone has to obey. And you've seen the draconian reactions to some of the things that have been decreed, you know. So anyway, I just like to read through the book of Daniel and particularly chapter 8 today. And so I'm sure you noticed by now, like the animals and the creatures that they're seeing were representing countries and also kings and kingdoms. So now we're going to go to Daniel chapter 8, and I'm just going to read through it today. And then maybe we can cover a little more of the things a little more in detail tomorrow. So if you guys got your Bibles, turn to Daniel chapter 8. And I hope the Bible is becoming alive to you. And I hope it becomes very clear and apparent to you that we are living in very strange times. I have to say this. Every time I think of it, people always say to me, now this is really true. They always come to me and say, well, you know, it's heavy, these things are in the Bible and blah, blah, blah. But maybe it's not for our time. Maybe it's for another time. But I just want to tell you clearly, you know, that this is our time and these things are happening in our time. Maybe you think this for our time, like some of these people say. Yes, it is our time. So we're going to turn to Daniel chapter 8, and I'm going to read with you. We'll walk through it together. And this is verse 1. It says, in the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after the which appeared unto me at the first. So the dream he had before, and now again another vision. And this is during the reign of Belshazzar. This is very interesting because Belshazzar was still the Babylonian Empire, and this is the great grandson of Nebuchadnezzar, which we talked about a little earlier yesterday. And Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon, and this is around 500 BC, before Jesus came. So it's over 2,500 years ago this happened. And so Daniel, for those of you who are just joining, was a prophet of God who gave us many of our end time prophecies about what's happening today. And he was an Israelite. He was from the land of Judah. He was from Israel, and he came to Babylon as a refugee. He was taken there as a teen under the captivity of the Babylonian army empire. They brought slaves back from Israel all the way back to Babylon, and he became used. He was very used in the first empire, and he actually became. Not only was he a slave, but he actually went up in the government, and he became a consultant for the king Nebuchadnezzar. And later on, his grandson took over the reins of Nebuchadnezzar, and he also was recognized as a wise man of God with knowledge, and he became a part of the government. He started working, let's say, working in the government as well in the reign of Belshazzar, the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar. So here we are. He's having another vision, another dream. And it says here, and I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in the vision, and I was by the river Uli. So he was, it's another vision, another dream, or like super clear. And then, so he went into this state where you'll see clearly that this was an angel brought him this vision and showed him these things. It says, then I lifted up my eyes, and I saw, and behold, there stood before me the river, a ram, right, which had two horns, and the two horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. Now, this is really a bomb. When we go back through this, we discussed yesterday that in Daniel chapter 7, there was a bear, and the bear had one side higher that was stood up more than the other side shoulder of the bear. So this is pretty significant. You see this second time here, something that's higher or stronger or that's different than the other side of this creature that he saw, right? And which there were the two horns, and one side was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. It's quite. I'll just go ahead and say it now. Like yesterday we said that the bear in Daniel chapter 7 was represented by the country or the reign of the Medo-Persians. And it's so cool. You see this over and over again, that one side of the creature that he would always see in this particular animal was higher or stronger than the other side. So there you got this bear yesterday, we discussed it, was higher than, that had a higher side to it than the other side. And then we knew from the bear that we got yesterday in Daniel chapter 7 that this bear was the kingdom of Medo-Persia, right? So you got another animal again with a part of his body higher than the other part. So here, once again, the Lord is kind of reiterating again what this kingdom after them would be like, right? And it's so funny in Daniel chapter 2, you got to look at this over if you like, that this particular part of the chapters of Daniel, he saw this image, and there was another statue, and in this statue there was a representative of the part of the arms. You have the left arm and the right arm, and you know that normally your left arm is stronger than your right arm, and your right arm is stronger than your left arm, whichever one you're used to having, if you're left-handed or right-handed. And it's so funny, Medo-Persia was a dual kingdom, and the Persians were stronger than the Medes, but it was a duel. They kind of communicated together, and they became a dual kingdom, and they worked all the differences out where they became a world power, but it was a dual power with two different kings, right? So here, once again, you see this creature comes again, and one side is higher than the other side. So that's another representation of the Medo-Persian empire, right? So, and I saw a ram. So he saw this creature, right? This ram. And I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward. So he saw the ram running to the west and running to the south and running to the north, this ram. So it's a little area that he was working in. This little picture. And so then no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. So you got this picture in your mind, and I'll show you a little picture of it. All right. So there he's going to have this little ram. He saw this ram. Right here. This is the ram. And this ram was going northward, southward, and eastward. So this is, let's say, this is Daniel right here looking at this creature. All right, so, and he became great. He was really powerful. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. Uh-oh, this is another situation where animals going so fast, he's not even touching the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. So let's check how that looks. So there he is. So there's this goat creature right here. And he had this great horn that was between his eyes, his notable horn. You can see it really sticks out right here. And he came running toward the ram. And he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran into him in the fury of his power. So this ram just ran right into him. Yeah, bam! And hit him head on. Right? And I saw him come close to the ram, and he was moved with choler against him. He was moved with anger, in other words, and smote the ram and brake his two horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. So this goat ran into the ram and broke him up. Now, keep remember in mind that these animals are representations of governments. Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great. Wow. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable horns toward the four winds of heaven. Now, there we go again. We see here again about four, this creature. Like yesterday, we talked about this other creature, this other beast, who had four wings. Okay, and we talked about Nebuchadnezzar, how he was really proud, and his wings got plucked, and then he later on became a man again. And then we see again about this other leopard animal, leper, and he also had four heads and the animal died. He was fast again, going over the ground really fast, and boom. And yesterday we discovered that the animal was talking about Greece, and we know later on that Greece was divided up to the four generals, those four powerful generals, right? So here we are. Here we see it again, and out of them came forth a little horn. Okay, so that goat, right? He came and he ran into the ram, and then later on, the goat had these horns, and it was broken, It was this big horn, that one big horn. That horn broke up and it became four little horns came up. Now, once again, we were discussed how those, like that creature in 7 was the empire of Alexander the Great. And we know that Greece was divided into four major countries or four major empires after Alexander the Great died. Right? So here you see it again. Like for this horn, they came up four. Once again, you see it again. Notable horns toward the four winds of heaven. So boom, there you go again. And out of one of them came forth a little horn which waxed exceeding great, which means it became really great. If you get a new version of the Bible, it might explain it a little differently. But I'm reading through the King James version. But it will just say that these four horns became great little horns. And just, they were little and they all became big and powerful toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land. Wow, something significant, the pleasant land. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. So this one horn out of the four horns became really big, right? And you see it right here. So you got the 1, 2, 3 back there, and this one notable horn became really big. You can see it in the picture. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. Now, how can a horn go up to heaven? So there you go, that symbolism and that those secret, mysterious code. Well, a horn's not going to go up to heaven. So the reason why I'm being like this, guys, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but I'm just trying to say these symbolisms represent things that are notable and understandable at that. And so this one horn, now we know that the four horns from yesterday, or the four heads from yesterday, we talked about in 7, was represented by four different nations, four kingdoms. So it is the same with the horns. The four horns, again, you got those four same kingdoms. And it seems that goat was going so fast, he hardly touched the ground. Once again, a symbol of the speed and agility of the empire of Alexander the Great. And we know from history, now all these things that we're seeing, that Daniel is seeing, always alludes to some kind of government or a leader or a world power. And we know from history that at least the known world were these periods of, Egypt, Assyria, Medo-Persia, Greece, then later on Rome. So we're talking about actually the kingdom of Greece here. I will show you why later. But I'm just quietly going over it simply so you can realize that they're talking about kingdoms and nations. So like I said, the first part of the chapters that you might read in Daniel gives the story, and the second part gives you a better explanation and explains it pretty clearly what these animals or creatures or beings that he sees are what they represent. So, and it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. To heaven? And it cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground. Okay, it's symbolism. And stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. Oh my God. That means he just puffed himself and equalized. It became like he felt he was equal to the prince of the host of heaven. And you're going to see who that prince is in a little bit. And by him, the daily sacrifice was taken away. And the place of the sanctuary was cast down. This is like we got a daily sacrifice in here. And a host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression. And it cast down to the ground the truth. And it practiced and prospered. Right? So we read in verse 13. We're going to continue. And I heard one saint speaking to the other saint that said unto the certain saint, which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice, and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. All right. So we got some time periods under here. All right. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Now it starts to get me like, whoa, sanctuary, host, temple, sacrifice? Where'd that come from? What does that have to do with these animals all of a sudden? Now we're moving into sacrifice and host of heaven. And what do these things represent? Let's see. So if you're following me, I hope you have your Bibles. I'll call up a screenshot for you. Let's get another screenshot. And you can see the portions I'm reading. Okay, so I'm at verse 13. And he said unto me, verse 14, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Now we're talking about a sanctuary now. What does that have to do with it? Let's see. In verse 15, it says, and it came to pass, when I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. Okay, now we're going to get down to the nitty gritty here. Let me put this here up front. There I am there. Oh, here we are. Wow. Now, you start seeing now he starts talking about this man. Now, remember, he's having a vision, or he's having a dream, or he's seeing this thing, and somebody is showing him these things in his vision. So he came near, so this being. Now let's see who this being is. And it came to pass, when I, Daniel, had seen the vision, this is verse 15, and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. So somebody stands before me, and it looks like a man. And let's see who that is. 16 says, and I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. Wow, very clearly this guy says Gabriel. And if you're a Christian, you may have heard Gabriel, the archangel. So here we are. We got Gabriel here. Now you can look up Gabriel, what that means in your own time. If you Google Gabriel, who is Gabriel? Now, according to the Bible, Gabriel is an angel. He was an angel later on who spake to God's people later on in the New Testament, during the time of Jesus. And here is this man, right, who says to Gabriel, hey, help this guy to understand this vision that he's seeing and what it means, right? So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Whoa, there you go, right there. These visions are talking about the end. Because a lot of Bible teachers say, oh, it already happened. Jesus came back already. That prophecy of Daniel was already fulfilled. No, it was not. I can honestly say that. And you don't have to be a Bible scholar or a theologian to understand that it didn't happen. Because when you look at Daniel chapter 2, like I said, and Daniel chapter 7 that we read yesterday, that stuff didn't happen. It didn't. Jesus didn't come back yet. Because they'd always talk about the Son of Man or the Messiah or the Prince, and it didn't happen yet. Jesus is not here. He didn't walk around. He's not walking around yet. Later on, you got like 500 years. Let's be honest. When this was given about 500 years before Jesus came. And it didn't happen. So this is one indication right here that we're talking about something that's was going to happen near the end. Now, when Daniel got this dream, there was no king of of Greece yet. There was only the Babylonian Empire, and you heard hints during Medo-Persia when Daniel also was still alive. Daniel lived, I don't know, 80s or so like that. So there was a slight smidgen of a kingdom called the Medes and Persia, and before Daniel died, they were heard of. Those areas of the world were heard of, but they didn't take over they hadn't become world powers and world famous yet. So we're talking about something that hadn't even been fulfilled yet. There was no Medo-Persian kingdom yet. There was only the Babylonian Empire. And we know from history that after the Babylonian Empire came a world power called Medo-Persia, which was a dual kingdom. I'll say it again. And as you see, the symbolism always shows this one animal, which is representation of a kingdom, had a side stronger than the other side. Okay, in Daniel chapter 2, you hear he had during the Medo-Persian Empire, there was this statue that was a representation of governments. And one side of the statue had a right arm, and the other side the left arm. And we know that the left arm is stronger than the right arm if you are left-handed, and the right hand is stronger than the left hand if you're right-handed, right? So that was a representation of a government. Yesterday we talked about the beast, that the bear, and it had one side higher than the other side. And now today we're talking about a ram that had one horn bigger than the other horn or higher than the other horn. And so there you go. It's talking about that kingdom that came later on. Because when Daniel got this, the Medo-Persian Empire hadn't even come into power yet. So this is the future. They're talking about something in the future. And you know what? Was the Medo-Persian kingdom the last kingdom, world power? After that, no. We know that after the Medo-Persia came Greece. Then after Greece came Rome. And then Rome came to pass. And later on, you'll see how it all congeals together. So we're seeing these creatures. And now we're even seeing how these things are brought to Daniel through angelic beings. So you start seeing a little more hint. First, yesterday in Daniel chapter 2, you see these little people talking to us. So who are these people that are talking to Daniel and digitally, I don't know, spiritually showing him these pictures and these visions of the future? So this angel, so it's an angel, right? So it says, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. Right? So we're back here. So we got a guy here called Gabriel. So Gabriel is the archangel. So you can look it up yourself in your time. So he came near where I stood, this Gabriel. And when he came, I was afraid. And I fell upon my face. Ah! Fell upon, but he said unto me, understand, so, O son of man, for the time of the end shall be the vision. Now you get it clearly. At the time of the end shall be the vision. Oh, that blows away a lot of people who say, oh, this stuff already happened. No, it's symbolic. No. The time of the end hasn't happened for 2,000 years. Now, all the Bible teachings goes up to Jesus. Then Jesus even refers to Daniel, right? I'm just giving you a clear, just shot straight through. Then we can go back and do a little history afterwards. So even Jesus later on mentions Daniel, right? So now, since Jesus there's been 2,000 years of history, world history going by, and nothing happened yet, right? So I know, and I believe you know, that Jesus said very clearly that when he comes, it will be the end. That's going to be it. Over. Finish. So the world has continued. So people who say that, oh, this stuff has already happened. since Jesus said it, it's not true because the world's still going on. It's still moving. There's still governments. There's still life. There's still things going on, and it's not the end of the world. God hasn't come back and shut the world down. Now we know that from other chapters of the Bible that when Jesus comes back, that's it. It just shuts down. It's going to shut down all these worldly kingdoms, all these powers, and God is going to take over Jesus is going to take over the world, over the whole world, and rule the world from his kingdom. Now later on, you're going to see why Jesus is going to do it and why it never happened, because the world is still going on. There's still evil people in the world. There's still wars. There's still rumors of wars. There's still death and destruction. So we know because of that, which is, kind of common sense, that that is not the end. The end hasn't happened yet. Jesus hasn't come back yet. Death hasn't been destroyed through his, Jesus did break the power of death over himself and us when we receive him, but not through technology. Is God going to use technology to break the power of death and make us live forever, but through his own power. So this stuff hasn't happened yet. But it's saying here, way back 2,400 years ago, more or less, that there will be an end to all this. Right? So let's go on. And we're going to read through 17. So he came near, and I stood. And when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, understand, O son of man, for the time of the end shall be the vision. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground. But he touched me. This angel reached over and set me upright. He charged him up, set him upright, woke him up, and said, hey, wait a minute, whoa, this isn't over yet. And he said, behold, I will make known to thee what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For the time appointed, the end shall be. Now, the end has an appointment. It's not just floating in space and we're wondering, well, someday, maybe in our time, maybe after our time, there will be the end of the world. No, it's an appointed time. And we're almost at the end of the road, the train ride, guys. So at the end, all these things are going to be the end. This little horn is going to be at the end. And it says again, this horn had a mouth speaking great things. That hasn't happened yet. And there has not been any sacrifice or something that was stopped after 3.5 years or after a certain time. So the world, it seems, according to this Daniel chapter 8, that there's going to be a time that it's going to stop these sacrifices and all these things. And all these things is supposed to happen at the end, right? And there's going to be war at the end. And there's going to be fighting these stars of heaven. Let's go on and see what happens. And he said, behold, I will make, this is verse 19, I will make known to thee what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. The ram, now he's going to explain it, like I told you guys. The Bible, I love the Bible so much because people, it's just so clear. It's so understandable. It's so simple, so easy if you just stop and listen and read it, all of it, not just 2 little verses, but so we're going to read through the whole text first today. So the ram which thou sawest, now here's that ram ram back here that we saw, this beast, right? This little guy up at the top part. This ram which thou sawest having 2 horns, and are the kings of Media and Persia. All right? Media and Persia. Now, these lands already existed, but they were not world powers yet. People knew, they heard of it. They heard of Media and they heard of Persia. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. Now, if you look up, you see the ram, that's Media Persia, and the king of Grecia. They even said to him, the king of Grecia. Now, at this time when Daniel got the dream, it wasn't a world power yet. But later on, we know through world history and that these lands became world powers. Medo-Persia became a dual nation empire from world history. And then we know after Medo-Persia came Greece, and they became a world power. But at this time, they were just little areas, just little. Nobody cared about them. They didn't think they have to worry about them, and the big cheeses at that particular time was the kingdom of Babylon, right? So here he is clearly said, this rough goat is the king of Grecia. So it's very clearly, it says it right there. So there again, it shows you now these animals are starting to have names, and these creatures are starting to be nations. They said Grecia very clearly, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. See, there it is, right there. So simple. So people make like it's mystical. It's incomprehensible. It's okay. There you go. So there it is, right there. So the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, now the goat ran into the ram. Bam! That being broken, whereas the four stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. There you go. So we know from world history that Greece, because now we're talking about the goat again, right? Now we're back at the goat. That this guy, this horn is going to come up, and we know that from world history that the leader and the king of Grecia was Alexander the Great. He was the founding father of the Grecian Empire. And we know from world history that Greece was divided into 4 main big powers. So it says here, now that being broken, whereas the 4 stood up for it, for that one horn, 4 kingdoms stood up, 4, after that horn was broken, shall stand up out of the nations, but not by his power. So we know that Alexander shortly died after, he got a sickness and died. And out of them, they got these other 4 kingdoms that came up out of him. The generals got together, divided it all up and said, okay, you take this half. All right, you're going to take Grecia. You're going to take Rome. There was actually a part called Rome. It was a little part, a little stone. And then, Babylon and Assyria. Okay, so there you go. It was all those 4. Out of those 4, now we got this little horn coming out of this little horn, out of the 4 horn, and he's going to get big. So here we go. Let's see what he looks like. Okay, we got to have this little guy here. Where is he at? And this little guy is going to come up. And let's see. We're going to find him. So anyway, he came up. So now that being broken, 4 horns stood up, and 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nations. So let's find this little guy here. There he is. Okay. Let's pull him up top so you can see him. There he is. And we're going to make this. So you got this horn right here. Let's look at it like this. Can you see that? So it's a little illustration of those 4 horns on the top of that he-goat. And this horn comes up, and it's going to get really big out of all the 4 of them. It's going to be really big, right? And in the latter time, so look at this. Now, that being broken, whereas 4, verse 22, stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nations, but not by his own power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, okay, they're the end, when the transgressors are come to a full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Now, it doesn't say the word antichrist, but we know that from the book of Revelations, because later on you're going to start hearing more and more. And now you're just hearing a little bit about this special little guy that's going to have a fierce countenance, and he's going to have a big mouth, like this picture here. And he is going to start sharing and saying a lot of freaky things right here. You see him. And he's going to be really powerful. And he's going to start saying these things. And his power shall be mighty. Verse 24. But not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. Right? This guy, this one horn here, this power, this leader. And through his policy also, this is verse 25, he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. Witchcraft, okay, where we get this, I'll show you tomorrow, but we're going to show you later on this craft, this special things they do. And he shall magnify himself in his heart. He's going to be like, wow, I'm really great. I'm really cool, I am. And by peace shall destroy many. That's what's happening right now. The peaceful marches. It's destroying us, but it's peaceful. Same kind of mentality, the same way of thinking. Saying, oh, I'm coming in peace, but they destroy you, right? And he shall also stand up against the prince of princes. Now we know who is the prince of princes. Let's see what that says. The prince. Prince of princes. Let's look at their Google here. Who is the prince of princes? All right, the prince of princes. All right, let's check the King of Kings. All right, so we're going to look at this verse here. If you got your Bible, let's look up and see what this Prince of Princes looks like. So we're going to put him away, his little image away right now for a little bit. And we're going to go back. So Jesus is the Prince of Princes, the God of gods and the Prince of Princes. Right? So we're in Daniel chapter 8, and we're reading through this. And we know from the Bible that Jesus is the Prince of Princes. He is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I'm going to read this. I'll read it for you. You can see it yourself. If you got your Bible, let's see where we're going to find that specifically. It's actually referring to Daniel 2. All right. So anyway, we know that Jesus, let's see, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Let's look at that up. I just want to be very specific so you'll see clearly from yourself. Let's see, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. All right, let's see what we got here. King of Kings, Prince of Kings, King of Kings. My computer's a little slow, guys. Okay, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So we're at Daniel 8:25. I don't want it to be too long, but I just wanted to show you. We can find some cross references for that. King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Okay. That's in Isaiah. I see another one. So anyway, Let's continue though, because for time's sake, I don't want to be too long because you guys. But I want you to watch all my videos, and I want you to get a whole thing. Well, you could look up that. Look up King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and if you're a Christian, you know that the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords is Jesus Christ, as far as the Bible's concerned. Okay. And though and through his policy he will cause, verse 25, crafts to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself even in his heart, by the peace shall he destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princesses, but he shall be broken without hands. We know God's going to break the power of the enemy, of the devil. And the vision of the evening and the morning, which was told, is true. Whereof, wherefore, shut up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And that's true. It's been many days and centuries since Daniel got this prophecy, but it is talking about the end. There's no other time in history that this has happened. There's no other Grecian empire that has happened during the time of Greece. Alexander died over 2,000 years ago, right? Then after that, the Roman Empire took over. So once again, you see these animals. And the Bible works just like that. You know, when it's talking about this particular Daniel, you're going to see more and more. You start seeing these beasts, and God sees these world's kingdoms as beasts. This is how God actually sees these kingdoms, and how His word represents them. And later on, when you get into the book of Revelations, you're going to start. Oh wow, there's this dragon that comes up, and you're going to see more and more of these animals, and how they're kind of like beasts. And then you're going to start seeing a pattern, how God starts sharing that. I don't know if God used that because of, to keep his word being able to pass through the centuries, because a lot of these kings, if they saw that and knew how God thought of it, and how the people would think of it, they would have burned Bibles. Well, they started burning Bibles a long time ago. But for simplicity's sake, for simpleness sake, I'm just reading through it today. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. This is verse 27. Afterwards, I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. Now, this hasn't happened yet, but you're going to see it more and more as we go more and more, because it gets clearer. Remember, I shared with you day before yesterday that the Bible works like this. This is why a lot of people get mixed up in Bible prophecy. Like I said, this is Bible prophecy for dummies. Okay. A lot of people get mixed up when they read through the Bible, because the Bible first gives you an overview. I find that in many cases. Then in the next following chapter, if it's talking about the same thing, it gives you a closer look at things. So from the big view and the little view, people get mixed up. And they start mixing things up, and they go, wow, it's too symbolic. You can't understand this. It's mystical, and you can't understand it. But every time I've noticed, and many Bible scholars have noticed, that within the same chapter, when they give the vision or the dream, there's always a simple explanation of what these things are. Now, when Daniel got this stuff, the Medo-Persian Empire, when it finally took over, hadn't come into effect. And so later on, when we start getting into Daniel chapter 9, and we start getting into Daniel chapter 11, and we move on to the Revelation. So what I'm doing now, I'm going over the major prophecies of the Bible. And there are hundreds of prophecies. And it would be very difficult for someone to explain it all right now, because that takes years for you, or take a long, real study to see this. But you start seeing a correlation between the chapters and between these prophets and how they speak. It's very clear that they're talking about kingdoms, empires, world leaders. So I'm going to leave you with that today, and we'll cover it a little more detail maybe tomorrow. But as you can see, once again, and I hope, like I said, you should go through Daniel chapter 2, because Daniel chapter 2 is really basic, and it's really clear. And if you know world history, that's why you should know world history. That's why you should study. Education is very important. And people use education to varying degrees. But I've had a wonderful education in high school, and I did do a little bit of college. But for what I needed to do, I had to do a little more other advanced studies, I would say, and learn a little more that I couldn't have learned otherwise. Because a lot of people who have many, many degrees in theology and uh, in that of the clergy, a lot of these people don't understand this. Sorry, because a lot of people in many of these churches or religions, they don't want you to understand because I'm sorry to say that Satan has usurped a lot of the biblical knowledge and kind of muddied the waters, you might say, with some of the things that he has to say, which I'm so glad I never really had to go through. Because a lot of people go to seminary and come out atheists. I'm sorry. It's the truth. Okay, I'm not speaking against any kind of denomination, but I've seen a lot of these guys come out of churches, universities, and theological colleges that are just totally, it just seems weird. I'm thankful that that some of them even still believe in Jesus, but many people I've talked to who got doctors and got their diplomas and all these things are totally way out there and don't even believe in Jesus anymore. So, it's good to kind of be simple in some ways with the simplicity of Christ. So I implore you to please, you can go back over this again, read it again for yourself, and you can go back online and look up some of the more factual dates and land masses and where they were situated. But all this area, the whole world right now is being led. I have to say this. I really would like to say this before I stop for the day. You can see that the world is being governed and led by these world powers, and the peoples of the world are being controlled by them. And like I mentioned before, in Matthew chapter 4, you might want to look up that, the devil controls these world kingdoms. He even said to Jesus when Jesus was going through his first test, when he started his ministry, the devil took him up to a high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. It wasn't necessarily that time period, but all the kingdoms of the world, it says, maybe let's say that world, in a moment of time. And he said, all these things will I give thee if thou wilt fall down and worship me. So God sees these world kingdoms as beasts. I tell you, sometimes they really are beastly. And you are living in the time of the end. Now this part you saw. Now Daniel's starting to talk now. Now we're starting to talk about more clearly about the time of the end. And you're going to see in the next chapters, right on up to Revelation, how it plays into our time period in history. And how we are, without a doubt, unequivocally, without any kind of doubt, that we are living in the time of the end. This didn't happen thousands of years ago. Jesus didn't come back thousands of years ago. And the reason why we know he didn't come back thousands, like 2,000 years ago when he was in the earth, is because he hasn't come back in the clouds and of heaven with power and great glory. And his saints haven't taken over physically the earth and the kingdoms of this earth. So there is a time when Jesus will come and take over this earth. And physically, not metaphor, like in a metaphor or something that's symbolic. He's going to physically come on the earth and physically take over Rome, physically take over North America, South America, Australia, and the 4 continents. And his kingdom will be a world kingdom under God for a change. But right now, the devil's in control. And he's using these beastly kingdoms to run the world right now. And he himself, this little horn with a big mouth, bigger than mine, is going to be ruling. Right before your very eyes, you will see him on TV You will see him on ABC, BBC, CNN, Fox News, and whatever. You're going to see him actually there running the world, and it's getting closer and closer every day. And this coronavirus situation we are in right now is a prelude to that, and us suffering around the world and people starving. It's going to get really bad. I'm sorry to tell you guys, because I really want to bring this Bible prophecy to life. It's not some mystical thing. And it's going to get really tough, and it's going to get so bad that everybody's going to be crying out, hey, we need a leader. We need a world leader. And everybody's pushing this world government, one world government. You can see it on TV. So there you are. So love you. I hope you have a really nice day. Thanks for stopping by and listening. And remember, don't forget to continue to log on to my Facebook page and study the Bible with me. And also, don't forget to log on to my YouTube channel, the Monte Cagle YouTube channel. You can find all my videos there. And if you'd like to get my book, Racism and the Cure, it's in ebook format right now. And you can just go right there to my store page at montecagle.com, and you can download the ebook right there. And if you'd like to donate to this ministry that I've started, we really would appreciate it. You can also donate. Go to my Monte Cagle page and hit the donate button and donate something to help us further the work of God and share the truth and the Word of God with you and the world. So we'd like to wish you a super duper Wednesday. Thanks for stopping by, and study that tonight, because tomorrow we're going to get into a little more detail of Daniel chapter 8. Thanks for stopping by. Have a beautiful Wednesday, and bye-bye.
Yeah, we got a lot of fun going on here now. That's right.
As you're waking up this morning, wondering what is there to do today.